Like I've always wanted to be a father. It was being a long dream of mine, I had it before I was a photographer, and it's been a constant thing. And in 90% of my decisions in life, if not 100% of them, I always thought about like, okay, so how will this affect my kids?
This is Dadography, a podcast with stories and insights on fatherhood from dads around the globe, dedicated to providing you with the tools and tips to become a better dad. I'm your host, Corey Wood.
Well, what's up, guys? Welcome to the Dadography podcast, the podcast dedicated to having conversations with dads from around the globe with the goal of getting insights and tips on fatherhood to help us all become better dads. Today, we're going to be speaking with Tito Herrera, who hails from Panama. And just to give you a little bit about Tito, he's an award-winning visual storyteller, travel, editorial, and documentary photographer. He's worked with organizations such as Discovery Channel, Time Magazine, and the New York Times, National Geographic. And those are all fantastic jobs. However, we're going to be taking a look at his most important job today, and I'm sure Tito would agree, and that is his job of fatherhood. Tito, welcome to the Dadography podcast. Pleasure to have you, man.
Thank you for inviting me. My pleasure to be here. You are 100% correct. To me, and this is diving headfirst into the pool of the subject and the matter of the podcast. But to me, my most important job and my biggest pride, I always said, is being a father and having my kids. It is, in fact, my greatest gift and my biggest goal in life is to be a good one.
I hear you, man. Well, it's really a pleasure to have you on the show. If you would, Tito, and I gave a slight intro there, but give us a little bit about you, man. Tell us about yourself.
All right, so let's try to make it in a nutshell. On the personal matter, I am born and raised Panamanian. I was born and raised in Panama City, in a neighborhood called Rio Abajo, but I was raised in a neighborhood called Cerro Viento, which is in a different part of the city. Mom and dad are Panamanians. Very humble family. One would say even poor. My parents were the first ones to of their families to kind of start educating themselves. My dad was the first one in his family to go to college. Mom and dad, and two sisters in the house. Uh, I started playing music when I was like 14 years old, piano, guitar. Joined the National Conservatory to study music composition when I was a teenager, because that was my goal in life, to be a musician. And so my father and parents in general, my mom too, wisely thought I was getting a little out of hand, which I will own up to that. And so kind of put the fear, the social fear in me, and the fear of God in me, of like, what if music doesn't play out? So why don't you get something that can provide uh, something better for you? You know, a steady future in case the music thing doesn't work and whatnot. And so basically, out of me being the stubborn, prideful person that I am, I decided that, well, I was gonna find if I was gonna find a job, I was gonna find a job that will definitely shut them all up, not only my parents, and show them that I'm smart enough to do something with my life, that I was being a rebel by choice, but that will also make me a better songwriter, which is what's my dream in life. And that in case that doesn't play out, it will also pay me really good. And so what I come up with, you know what? I'm gonna get into law school. I'm gonna become a lawyer, because lawyers make a ton of money. They pay really well. And by default, because you're a lawyer, you need to write a lot and read a lot, and that will make me a better writer in general. So I went into law school, and I got into
Okay.
law school, and I was working as a law intern while I was in my second year of law school. A friend of mine in the university told me that there was a youth magazine at the time who was looking for freelance writers on topics that had to do with youth. And so I was working as a law intern, but she knew I like to write songs and I like poetry. So she recommended me that I will try out for the magazine. And so I started writing for this magazine as a freelance writer, submitting articles. So I'm writing, I'm a lawyer, law intern by day. I'm a musician on the weekends and by night, and I'm a writer for fun. So I always liked that idea of communicating. And when I was like in my third, fourth edition with the magazine, the editor told me, we're a youth magazine, so we need visuals. So if you want to keep publishing with us, we need pictures, we need graphics. And so that's how I grab a camera for the first time ever. Well, I was in my second year of law school, and only to accompany the stories and text that I was writing. And that's how my
Wow.
photography started. So it was really, really crazy. And it has been pretty fast. I mean, it's been 24, 25 years, well, 23, 24 years probably since then, since I started, since I published my first article and my first pictures. But yeah, it went from 0 to 100, and then from 100 to 10,000 in like what it felt like in minutes to me. But that's in a nutshell how I went from, being a kid born in a kind of a poor neighborhood in the city to becoming a photographer 25
That's
years
an
later.
amazing, that's an amazing
there's
story.
there's a lot of
Yeah,
joy and tears and blood and sweat in the process, but I'm putting
yeah.
it in a nutshell because that this is not a photography podcast, so I don't want to get into
Yeah,
that.
no worries, no worries. Well, I was thinking even before starting this conversation with you about the parallel of photography and being a father. That is, being able to see things through a different lens, and that's one of the things that we really try to do as we talk to different dads. Try to be able to change the lens. Okay, well, here's a dad from Panama. Here's a dad from the US. Here's a dad
Yeah.
from, Burkina Faso in Africa. Let me change the lens and see what I can learn to help be a better dad. Are you married, single? How many kids you have? What are their ages?
I'm married 19 years this year, to the same super smart and wonderful woman, Jamie Sickrist, upstate Irish New Yorker. uh, and we have three wonderful boys. There are 12 going into 13. We have one that is 14 going into 15 this year, and one that is 16 going into 17 this year. So that's our family.
Okay, yeah, they're
We're
getting up in
five.
age now. You've got a couple of
They are
teenagers,
getting
huh?
oh, we have three. I mean, by the end of the year, even our youngest one will be 13. So we have three teenage boys in the house, and let me tell you, they smell like they are. They are young athletes. They're, I mean, amazing boys. I can't sing enough praises, and thank God for them not turning out like me. They are serious athletes at their young age, and they smell like it.
Well, I'll tell you what, you definitely sound like a proud father. And as we move along in the conversation, I definitely want to get into just how they became, serious athletes and such good boys. But
Mm,
before that, let's take a step back. You mentioned a couple of times when you were just telling us a little bit about yourself,
mhm.
about your father.
Yeah.
I generally like to with my guests, I generally like to get a sense of their father, what he was like. So if you could, man, take me back. Give me a day in the life of the relationship with you and your father. Kind of paint us a picture of him.
Yeah, it was normal to me, but looking back, it wasn't the most normal of relationships. My dad has always been an amazing provider, and because he came from barely anything, we come from a wonderful large family on my dad's side. He has 9 brothers. I have 36 cousins on his side only. It's a large family, but we are the closest. I love my family, and but it was a very poor family. He was a shoe shiner who some years went to school barefoot, and so it was really important for him to make something of himself to support his family, which he has done in an amazing way, and help his family, not only us, but his extended family and brothers and sisters and nephews and nieces too. I was born in a neighborhood called La Boca Town, which is kind of like a little Jamaican alley in a part of the town called Reabajo, which is, it's gotten better, but at the time it was, it's mainly Afro Panamanian, Afro Latino, Black people community, and that's where we were born. So from there to where we moved to a middle class neighborhood, far out of the city at the time, it was a big improvement for everybody. And for my dad, it was very important to be a good provider, to make something of himself, and to make a better future for us, to be able to put us in a private school that he never had, and to be able to, to show us a life that he never had. And sure enough, he did. But the price to pay with that is, of course, not being able to be around as much as I would have wanted him to be, or as he probably could have been. and
Right.
and so I was basically had a father who was is still an amazing provider, but I was basically raised by 7 women, which is my 2 sisters, my mom, my grandma, and a couple of cousins and aunts
Right,
that live
right,
with us. So I was raised among women, but always financially provided by a father who I used to see sometimes on the weekends when he wasn't working
right,
overtime.
right.
You know,
Understood.
and so his way of showing love has always been one of providing and giving things, not so much necessarily like giving you material stuff or buying you out with gifts, but like make sure that you get what you need. That's his way,
Right,
and
right.
making sure that you're steady
Roof over
is
your head, clothes on your
that
back, food in your belly.
that's his love language, and it took me a while to understand that. And of course, being a middle-aged man, I'm in my mid 40s now myself, I get it a lot more than I got it when I was a teenager. To me, he was a good father. There's of course things that I thought that he wasn't doing right, that I'm trying not to repeat with my kids, and there are things that I'm definitely teaching my kids that he taught me, such as hard work, the importance of family, and
Right.
and things like that. So I mean, we had a rough patch for a little bit, especially when I quit law school to become, in his mind or everybody's mind, a hippie, because you don't quit a steady job in law and business to try be a photographer that you didn't study for. So that created a really big gap between us that took a
Right.
long time to overcome. I think I unwillingly deeply hurt him by putting in his mind my future and my potential future family at the time
Right.
raised to, because I had something safe, and I gambled and all to follow a passion
Right.
that showed no potential future. So I understand where he was coming from.
Yeah, I mean, to his
Yeah.
credit, after hearing what you said, what he came from, I
Hmm.
think he kind of put it all on the line to make sure that
Well,
you and,
yeah,
and your siblings were well. So I can see where he would have been hurt, and how that could have created a drift. But like you said, as you've matured, you look back, you go, oh, okay, I get it. And that's where maturity plays a role in us, I guess.
yeah. I mean, there's. I mean, I've always heard this thing. I always heard this thing, like, there's no real book that can teach you how to be a father, or no one can teach you how to be a father. You're gonna, and I now that I'm a father of 3 with somewhat seniority on the matter, and I disagree. I think that while there is definitely not a single book or a course you can take on fatherhood, I think that your life experiences and your own experience or lack of experience as a father do teach you how to be a father. And if you're smart enough to look at the science, you can learn to be a father from that. Now, what kind of father you're going to be based on their experience, it's up to you. But there's definitely a starting point and some set guidelines based on your own experience. That's
Yeah.
my own theory on the matter.
We had a guest a while back, and I've probably quoted him 2 or 3 times on the show, but I'll do it again because what you're saying is parallel to what he said. And he said, whether you had a good father or a terrible father, you have the perfect blueprint. If your father was a bad father, then you know what not to do. And if he was a
Yeah.
good father, you know exactly what to
Well,
do. So it makes
yeah.
sense. If you had to describe your fatherhood style, how would you do it, Tito?
um it terrifies me. I have no idea what kind of father I am, and this is my honest answer. I second guess and question myself in my private moments a lot, and openly to my wife a lot too. Like, am I doing this right? Am I doing this wrong? Like, because you don't know, and we all know from our experiences, not only in being kids or being parents, but in general, like decisions that other people had on us affect us. But I think I will say that or I try to be. I don't know if I am, but I'm definitely try to be. To me, 3 things are very important. I try to be respectful of their individualities, and I really honestly truly am fascinated. I'm fascinated by watching them develop into their own self. They're completely different kids raised by the same 2 parents in the same house. So to me, that's fascinating how a human brain and the human kind just kind of develops on its own, even if you give them the same elements. There's a saying in photography that says, you can put 10 photographers in a lineup in front of the same subject, and none of them will take the same picture. And it's kind of the same thing here. It's like, we're raising these 3 boys, which if you think about it, they almost seems like triplets. They're mom and dad. They all do football or soccer, as you guys call it, so on and so forth. And yet they're completely different persons. So to me, I think to go back to the circle of the question, my main thing will be I try to be respectful of their individualities. I try to be supportive, but my support is not unconditional. As bad as it may sound, my support in the things that they want to do. I'm always a straight talker to them. I told them, you know what, I'll support you as long as you show me that you're serious in whatever it is that you're doing. Like if you want to compete in a Rubik cube contest, for example, I want to see you training. Or I'm not going to waste my Sunday taking you to do a Rubik cube contest. If you train and I see you doing good, I see you committed to whatever it is, whether it's baking a cake or doing a Rubik cube. I'll
Right.
I'll sacrifice. I'll buy you the best Rubik cube I can afford, and I'll take the whole day off to be there and take pictures of you and cheer you on. But I don't want no mediocrity. I don't want, like, if you're gonna commit, let's do it 100%. And as long as you do it and you're committed to this, you have my 1,000% support. You got me, as long as you show me that you actually care for something.
That
Whether
you're
it's,
serious.
yeah,
Nice.
I guess the last thing will be I try to just in general just trying to be fair, and that's the hardest part. You trying to, you think you're being fair, and a lot of times you don't get all the elements. But I think I'm supportive. I respect their individualities. I like that part about them, and I try to be fair in general. It's not the last one is the hardest part, I guess.
Corey here, wanting to give you a personal invitation to follow us on Instagram. You can find us at Dadography Podcast. It's really good because you get an opportunity to put a face with the voice that gave you some insight or some encouragement on your journey in fatherhood. We look forward to having you follow us on Instagram at Dadography Podcast.
Yeah. Well, listen, let me read you a quote, man. And this is a quote from you, by the way. I'll read it in Spanish first, and then I'll translate it for our listeners. It says, mis energías, inspiración y principal misión en la vida, ser papá es un privilegio y mis hijos mi mayor orgullo. No es fácil, pero seguimos. Un trabajo a tiempo completo para toda la vida. And the English translation is, my energies, inspiration, and main mission in life is being a dad. It's a privilege, and my children are my greatest pride. It's not easy, but we continue. A full-time job for life. So what was your state of mind in this quote? Like, take me to that moment and just
Oh,
kind
well,
of, because I mean, I can feel the I don't know. I think the appropriate would be the intensity and the focusedness on, hey, I want to be a good dad,
90% of the time that is my state of mind when it comes to my kids, and like they literally are my inspiration. I remember 5 years before I even met my wife, I had dreams about being a father. Like I wanted to be a dad. To me, it has been. It sounds really crazy, especially from someone who was into music and who's been to arts. And I mean, if you see me, I probably don't look the middle aged entrepreneur dad that I am. Because I have long dreadlocks and I'm all covered in tattoos and whatnot. And I make my life as a visual artist. But I kid you not, and I will never ever back down from this or be ashamed of admitting, like, I've always wanted to be a father. It was being a long, long, long dream of mine, I had it before I was a photographer, and it's been a constant thing. And in 90% of my decisions in life, if not 100% of them, I always thought about, like, okay, so how will this affect my kids? Like, if I take this job, will I be here? Like, should I do this? Should I not do this? And don't get me wrong. I mean, I specialize in a kind of photography that it involves a lot of risk. I was a photojournalist for a long time doing spot news, and that was stupid. And now I end up doing like all these travels around the world and crazy. I was 2 weeks. I was in the Amazon in Brazil. Like I go into all these crazy things, but I always think, like, how will this, like, affect my kids in terms of everything, like financially. Like, did I pay my life insurance in case I don't come back? Like, will this be cool to them? I overthink them in a good way. I think in a good way a lot. Like this, they are 100% my energy, 100% my inspiration. Not only that, but like and this is, it's gonna sound really redundant and probably boring and cheesy, but like, my kids do inspire me. Like I love football. I love soccer. I played it all my life, and my biggest achievement in life, playing sports, for example, was playing for the high school team and winning a neighborhood championship when I was 15 years old. And I
Right.
brag about that until I'm in my 40s playing on the Sunday league with the old fellas with the dad bob like me. And
Right.
so I
Right.
have these kids who like maybe through me caught the soccer bug and fell in love with it too. And now I have kids that are like 13, 15, 17 years old and have played international, played for a professional club, junior division. They compete for or who has more medals that have won championship. Like it's mind blowing how so much better than me they are in what they do. And so it really blows my mind and inspires me. And I'm humbled to just watch them because a lot of times they're more committed, you know, to their 14-year-old youth division professional quote unquote soccer careers than I am on my professional photography career over 20 years that pays the house and pay the bills, you know.
They give you the extra drive, man.
They yeah.
Your profession as a professional photographer, obviously you mentioned Amazon. So it requires that you go on assignment on occasion.
Yep.
And obviously that means physically being away from your kids. I know you love spending time with your kids and doing activities with them. What is, and I'm asking this really to kind of give some insight to maybe dads that are physically away from their kids due to work, or maybe in some instances due to a separation and they live apart from their kids. What is your strategy for kind of maintaining the bond with your boys?
My condition might be a little bit in terms of work. It might be a little different than most people, and I mean, sadly or fortunately I can't advise on separation because I'm not separated. But my way of working it out, it relies a lot, you know, on the fact that I have uh, Jamie that helped me make things happen. And I set myself some specific rules from day one that I've so far somehow miraculously been able to make happen. For example, I promised myself I was never gonna miss any of my kids' birthdays. And because I'm a freelancer, I guess, stupid me, I sometimes have to turn up jobs, but I don't regret it to make those things. I also, at the beginning of the school year, uh, or at the beginning of a soccer tournament, for example, they play soccer, I always sit down with my boys or with Jamie and be like, okay, so give me the important dates that you want me to be here or that you think I need to be here, because I want to make sure that I'm here for those things. And so I've been very, again, sometimes better financial judgment. I've been very strict with myself about committing to those things. And I had traveled for 20 days, 15 days, you know, long trips. I mean, to Asia a couple times, and because I was I work in the jungle a lot because I do this kind of documentary and adventure photography that is requires you to be there. But I also make sure that I'm always here for those things, for the days that to them and to me matter a lot. And the other thing is like there's kind of no middle ground, man. Either I am not because I'm traveling, or you can't get me off the couch in the living room. Like I'll take him to every soccer game that I can. I drive him to every soccer practice. You know, I am home. I cook for them. I make breakfast for them. Like when I am, and when I can be, what I can be. But if it comes to me, I would much rather be. So that's kind of how I do it, you know. And I understand that it's I'm kind of in that sense in a privileged position, being a freelancer, to kind of select those things. But that's kind of how I manage it. You know, conversations be like,
Okay.
okay, I need to be here. Okay, so this day is a school event that is important. It's a father kid thing, or it's a father. For example, like the school, they have this father and father versus student soccer night. I have to be there because we all love
Right.
soccer, so I want to be
Right.
there. So like I just literally just a day after I was setting up with the organizers, I call and say, hey, sorry, I got it wrong. I got to change the date of this workshop that you want me to give, because I have something important. And full disclosure, the important thing is that I realized, crap, that's a soccer night with my kids. I'd rather be with my kids playing soccer at the school event than teaching a workshop that I'm gonna get paid. I'll teach the workshop another day.
Right.
And you
Right.
know, and so and probably that's probably the reason that I'm never gonna be rich, also because I make all these hippie decisions. But that's kind of how I kind of how I manage it. You know, like I
Right. Well, it's a great strategy. I mean, it seems like the overarching idea is to make sure if it's within your power to be sure to not miss important days, beginning with
yeah
birthdays, and then activities that are significantly important to them. If
yeah
if your schedule can be
but
adjusted. So it's a good strategy for sure.
but then again, also, but for the record, also, I have missed important things, or things that or things that were unplanned that happened, and it breaks my heart. Like, the perfect example is last year. Just to give you an idea, it was a bunch of short trips, but I traveled 16 times in 9 months. So it's pretty much going on every other week. And through one of those times, our beloved pet dog, our puppy, passed away. And so that to me was a really traumatic thing. Not only because I love the dog and it was kind of like my dog, and full disclosure, man, we all cry for days. But I think that what made me cry the most, and I fully admit that I was crying in my hotel room when I was traveling. One of the things that broke my heart the most was not being able to be with my kids and with my family. And then when you come back, then you gotta, you know, we gotta talk about it, and we gotta have this conversation. But the moment had passed, and I missed that moment, and that morning period with them for the most part. And so that affected all of us. But I mean, they were affected by the dog thing. I was affected by not being there with them. As much as I love my puppy, and I miss him dearly too. He was like another son to me. But
Right.
but for the most part, and again, thank God, being able to not miss many things like that, because I'm very very conscious, and very serious about, hey, I need the dates. Please give me the dates that you guys want me to be here. You think you need me to be here, because I will not take a job on those days. If it's important for you that I see you on this game or at this school play, or to take you to your first dance, I want to be that father. But you need to tell me, because I'm a freelancer, so I need to provide for you guys. So give me the dates so I can secure them. And we have been very efficient as a family on making sure those things happens. And I'm
That's
grateful and
good,
humbled
man.
by that. you know
Mm. I'm going to segue just a little bit here, and just kind of touch on cultural diversity. I know that you're Panamanian, Afro Latino. You mentioned that your wife is Irish New Yorker, and how have these cultures played a role, if any, in your kids, shape their views and experiences?
it's interesting because we used to have a really good relationship as first as friends, then dating, and of course as a young newly married couple. And I think most of our marital problems started when we have kids, because that's when the cultural difference is starting to flourish. The cultural difference about raising kids and raising a family. That's when we start having or noticing the biggest differences that we have. And I mean, I'm not sure how it affect them, but I can tell you it affected both of us as parents, because there are things that were normal to me that were not to her. There's things that my family do that her family wouldn't dare.
Could you
There,
give me an example of one of the, I don't know, just culturally diverse things that maybe you guys had to
uh,
sit down at the meeting table and say, hey, let's figure this out.
for example, one of the things that we especially in these recent years, with the whole cultural climate in the states, and the way things are, because the states is our second country. We live in Panama, but we go to the states, and they are American kids. They are U.S. citizens,
Right.
and so we have to have some discussions about certain things, because like one of the things we talked about is like, hey, you guys are light skinned, freckle face. Two of you are, one of you at least, like your mom's family, red hair. I mean, but you're being raised in this multicultural family, and
Yeah.
so you're on your dad's side. Your grandfather, your abuelo, is a black man, a dark skinned man, a black Afro Latino person, and your
Right.
family is all black. My family is like, we're black people, Caribbean, Afro Latino, black.
Right. Right.
And on the other side, your mom's family is like as white as they come, you know. And so you are in the middle, and so you seem light skinned. You seem, for all intended purposes, a white person. And so people might make comments in front of you, on certain things, on people's skins, on minorities, and you need to understand that this is you too, like that you are part of this minority in a sense, and you need to, to best of your knowledge, if not defend, because you feel unsafe, at least don't participate in those things, even by accident, because this is your heritage. You are as much American Caucasian as you are Latino, as you are brown, and you have all these things inside of you. So you've been blessed to be raised in a country where that is for the most part not an issue. To go to a school where that's not an issue. To be raised in a family where that's not an issue. Where we sit on a table and you have your light skinned Latina abuela with your black abuelo and your 6 feet tall Irish grandfather, and we all have a happy family. And my sister come
Right.
with her kids and they're brown and they're your cousins and you guys share a bed. So you are maybe not aware of how different this is in this particular climate in the world. So you've been, I think, blessed to be raised in this colorblind scenario, but be
Right.
aware
From,
this.
like you said, from the family to the actual culture that they're
Yeah,
living in. It's just,
exactly.
yeah. Yeah.
Because to them a hot dog is just as normal as an arroz con pollo. It's like
Right.
you
Right.
know, yeah, but that's not the way the world works, and you will see things, and you might hear things. People might say things in front of you because you have red curly hair and freckles in your face, not realizing that your father is a brown man with dreadlocks. And they have seen it too. Like when we go as a family to on travels, for example, we travel as family internationally. I always say that I always win the lottery of the random checkup, and my wife sometimes gets offended and try to argue with TSA over the fact that they always want to check my dreadlocks and they always want to overcheck my luggage, and I get it.
Randomly.
Of
Randomly.
course, dude. I should win. I always win the draw. Like my luck, and I travel for a living, so like
Right.
I've learned not to make anything about it. Don't escalate things because you get stuck
Right.
in it. But so to me it's kind of comical, but to them it's kind of weird. Like, why is my dad always getting stopped, and why my mom not getting? Why don't we? Why when we go with mom, we never get stopped, but then when we go with dad, and he gets the double check, for example, or things like that. Um, or or there's a funny story about just the things that they're not realized that people and to me this is a funny story, but it's an example of how people perceive you that they're not aware of. There was a time that we we have our in-laws here and we rented a minivan, and we wanted to take him to a nice hotel out of the city, whatever. And so me being the local, my wife, my 3 kids, my two in-laws in the car, and I'm the only brown person driving the car. And I pull over to the hotel when I'm picking up the tab, when I'm inviting my guests and my family to be a part of this weekend that we have. And I pull over, and the drivers and the concierge said, "Okay, you can drop the guests here," and the drivers had to go park around the back, assuming that I was the driver of the van because I'm the brown guy
Right.
driving the van with
Right. Right.
7 white people in the car. And so to me and to us as family, that is hilarious, because he didn't mean any disrespect. He was just making a wrong assumption, but an assumption which
Right.
he felt terrible after. He apologized profusely, by the way. But it's just kind of subtle things that they are not aware of that the world will show them eventually. And so we're trying to have this conversation about like, hey, like people are people. I mean, and you might not notice this thing, but and the other way around too. Like your mom might be treated different because she's the only white woman in a soccer field surrounded with all these Latino moms. Like she's gonna be the one that stands out. Like I mean, it goes both ways. It's not only me being the brown one. It's always sometimes mom being
Right.
the only green guy in the place. So like, and so we have to have this talk. And sometimes it's them too. They don't understand how people don't want to befriend them because they look different. Well, son, it's because you have red hair and freckles, and you were playing in San Miguelito, which is kind of a suburb out of the city. Just be yourself, and eventually get to know you. And if they see something wrong, just let us know. We'll manage it. But it's an interesting phenomenon, to try to raise these kids in this kind of multicultural scenario.
Yeah, man. Well, let me ask you this as we come to a close here, and give it some thought. But what are some areas in fatherhood that you strongly believe that you're getting it right?
I think that because again, I think I overthink this. I try not to, but I question. Like I actually sit down, or I'm driving, and I try to reflect on the things that I'm doing in terms of this. Like these are conversations that I have with myself uh, or with my wife. Like I want to make sure that I'm trying to do a decent job, that they feel and notice that I'm involved, that they feel the love. I think the two things that I might be doing right, one of them being presence in their lives.
Okay.
Like I am very proud of the fact that each and every one of the coaches of my kids team know me, that most of the teammates know me, that their teachers know me, like that I am not some strange person who shows up to pick them up every now and then, that they know who I am, that they know I'm their father, that they know I have their backs, and that my kids know that too, that they know that they can come with me. Like, and I have these little things that I do with each one of them. Like, my middle kid likes to cook, so we cook together. And then my youngest kid likes movies, so we go to the movies just together. We sit down on a movie together. And then my older kid likes something else. Now we're like going on a little drive because he's learning to drive. So like, I make sure that they feel to the best of my abilities that I am involved and that I care. And I think that the thing that I'm doing is, I think I'm being. It kind of goes with the first one, being supportive. I took the rash decision in my life to do something that everybody kind of went against, thinking was the better for me. What was better for me? I had a dream. I'm making a living out of arts in a country with art is not a big deal. It can be done. They were born and are being raised in a house where, I mean, for better or worse, they have these two hippie parents that believe that dreams can come true. So if you have a dream, okay, let's work on this. But again, if you show me that you're working on it, I'll be 100% behind you. So I think the two things I'm doing right, I think, is one of them is making sure that they know I'm a part of their lives. I want them and everybody. I want everybody that knows my kids to know who I am, that I am their father, not because I want to show off, but because I want them to know that they have a father behind them, and that they're not alone. I think what I'm doing right also maybe is supporting them and again, not unconditionally. There are conditions. Show me you're working for the things, and they are. And so I am doing the best I can to support them and buying the best gear I can afford and taking them to all the games that I can and meeting with everybody that I can and just make sure they eat the right things. Just being there, supporting them and cheering them on and giving them advice. And I think those two things, if anything else, I feel like I'm heading in the right path if I am not already there.
Nice, nice. Well, Tito, I want to thank you for coming on to the show. But before we close, I've got one last thought for you. So let's assume that 20 years from now, your boys stumble up on the Dadography podcast and they decide we're going to listen to it. And we think it'd be real cool if you kind of seal something in a time capsule for them. So I'd like to give you a few moments and you can talk to your boys as individuals or as the group of your boys. And if there's anything you want to clarify about the way that you're fathering them, well, any message you have for them, let's seal it up in time, man.
All right. So they're going to listen to this in the future.
Yeah.
So by then, whatever happened already.
Exactly.
And I may not be here. So, okay. So, no, I guess what I will say is, you know what? I'm gonna get all emotional and crap. No, I think what I will say is, I think that I hope you felt my presence in your life. I hope you noticed that I was there for you. I hope you learn from my mistakes and enjoy the good things I did. I hope that I show you how to dream and make those dreams come true, whatever they are. And I hope you are happy, and I hope you have a kid as wonderful as you were to me. All three of you.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Tito Herrera, for coming on to the Dadography podcast. It's been a pleasure. Guys, be sure to tune in every Monday for a new episode of the Dadography podcast, where we communicate and converse with dads from around the world with the goal of helping us all become better dads. Thanks once again, Tito.
Let's start with respect for individuality. Even though Tito has 3 boys being raised in the same household, loving similar things, they are completely different individuals. Recognize, understand, and respect that. There's no cookie-cutter mold when it comes to fathering. Support their commitments. Show them that you're fully behind them for things that they choose to be serious about. Show up, and hey, since we're all humans, sometimes we're also going to show out. Find inspiration in your kids. Be motivated by their passions and accomplishments, and use that as fuel for your fatherhood drive. If you're a dad who moves around a lot, why not plan your availability beforehand? Commit to being there for the important dates. Be present in their lives. Make sure your kids know that you are and will be there for them. And while you're at it, make sure the people who surround them also know this. You are their father. Be involved and show them that you care and that you have their back. Thanks for your time, Tito. See you guys next week. We got another good one coming up.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Dadography podcast. Thanks very much for listening. I would, however, like to invite you to be a part of the show. Visit our website at dadography.net. Scroll down to the bottom of the page, click on the microphone, tell us your name, where you're from, and what fatherhood means to you. Remember, it takes more than DNA to be your dad.